Good morning students. Today we are going to start a new chapter, that is nutrition, and in this chapter we will discuss about the food that we take in, what is the proper or adequate amount of nutrition which is required by the person, and what are the substances or what are the organic and inorganic substances which is required by the body, which is essential for the growth of the body, which is essential for the well-being of a person. So this requires the diet, that is the food that we take in, and it is the main word or that which is linked with this is balanced diet. So what is a balanced diet, what is appetite, what is hunger? So all these terms will discuss today, and after that we'll discuss about the major constituents of the food, like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, what is the adequate amount or how much it is required for the body, what is the function of these nutrients in our body. So all these terms we'll study under this topic. After that there would be the deficiency diseases, some of the deficiency diseases, not all, and the nutrients, macro and micronutrients required by the body. So let's begin with the topic, which is nutrition. Now first is what is the definition of the nutrition? How do we define nutrition? So nutrition is the supply of essential organic and inorganic substances to the body. Essential organic substances. Organic is the substance which is made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen as their basic components. So they are organic. And inorganic substances, the ions, the minerals, the salts, these are constituent of the inorganic substances. So inorganic and organic substances supplied to the body is termed as nutrition. Next topic is balanced diet. And what is a balanced diet? Diet which contain all the principal constituents of food. The diet which contain all the principal constituents of food, like carbohydrate, protein, fat, in proper quantity, that is termed as a balanced diet. But this balanced diet is that essential component. The essentiality of a component differs from person to person, as per their age, as per their gender, as per their work requirement, or as per their special needs. So this balanced diet changes or varies from person to person. And what are the factors on which they depend? They depend on age. The balanced diet for an infant or for a small child is different from that of an adult, and which is further different from the old aged person. So the balanced diet is different for the different age groups. Then sex. The balanced diet for male and female is different, and because the requirements are different for these gender. Then lifestyle or nature of work. For a farmer, the requirement of carbohydrate is much more than a sports person, where the requirement of protein is more. So here also the balanced diet, the essential components of the balanced diet is different for these persons. Then special needs of a person, like for a sick person the components would be different. The balanced diet is components would be different. For a pregnant lady, for a nursing mother, the composition or the constituents or the food requirement is different for different persons. Then the next term is appetite. Appetite is the desire to eat. When we say that when a person is suffering from a disease, or when a person is not feeling well, then there is loss of appetite. Means loss of desire to eat anything, or loss of that taste, loss of requirement, that the person doesn't feel hunger. So this is loss of appetite. So appetite is the desire to eat. Next is hunger. The hunger is a uneasy sensation where there is lack of food in the body. This hunger is hunger would relate to a situation when the food supply is not in proper amount to the body, so then the person feels hungry. So this is about the terms related to food. Next topic is need of Next topic is need of nutrition. Need of nutrition. First is for the growth of the body, then repair of the damaged cells, repair of the worn out tissues. So growth, then the next is the repair of the tissues, the dead and worn out tissues. Third is for providing energy for various functions or various work done by the body. So for that it requires energy, and that energy comes from the food that we take in. Next is maintenance. Maintenance is the organs, the for the maintenance or for the proper functioning of the organs, for the repairing of the damaged cells, for replacement of the cells, new cells are formed. All this work or all this maintenance work is done by the energy. For this energy is required, and that energy we get from the food that we take in. Next is provision of raw materials. Raw materials is required for controlling or for stimulating various activities in the body, and these raw materials we get from the food that we take in. Then protection is for fighting against diseases, for fighting against various germs or infectious substances and entering inside our body. The requirement of raw materials is needed, the requirement of energy is needed for the, and that for increasing the stamina of the body, food is required by the person. Next is classes of nutrients. Nutrients are classified into the following categories. First is the carbohydrate, then protein, then fat, mineral salts, vitamins, and the last or the most important thing is the water requirement. These are all the substances or nutrients which are required by the body, or which is required in an adequate amount, which forms the balanced diet of the person. So this adequate amount, how much it is required and what is the composition of these nutrients. First is the carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is made up of carbon and carbon, hydrogen and oxygen also, but the ratio of carbon and hydrogen is 2:1. 2:1 here, actually it is H and C. H is twice of the carbon. Then it is further classified into three categories. The first one is the monosaccharide. They are the sugars. The carbohydrates are the simple sugars, and in the category of simple sugar they are monosaccharide, disaccharides and polysaccharides. Single unit of the sugar is termed as monosaccharide, and the best example of this is glucose, fructose. Glucose, which is the formula for this, is C6H12O6. Then the next is, if the two units of sugar is monosaccharide is joined together, then it forms a disaccharide. Next is, if there is a long chain of monosaccharide units joined together, then they form polysaccharide. Next is protein. The composition of protein is, it basically contains amino acids, and amino acid, the composition is, it contains carbon, hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen. Nitrogen is the basic component of protein, and so after the digestion of protein, urea is formed, which is needed to be eliminated from the body by the process of excretion. So here the composition is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. Then fats. Fats, the composition of fat is carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, and they provide more energy as compared to the carbohydrate. 1 mole of fat gives 9.45 kilocalories of energy, which is much more than the which is much more than 1 mole of glucose, which is 686 calories. Now mineral salts, the minerals that is required by the body for calcification, for ossification, or for blood formation. It forms the main pigment of the blood. It is required for the various activities or the stimulus for the functioning. All these are like the mineral salts are calcium, phosphorus. They are the components of bone, which forms a major constituents of bone. Then iron is a major important substance for blood. Then iodine, potassium and sodium also in the transmission in the excretory system. There is a requirement of, we have studied about the exchange of sodium and potassium ions. Then sodium pump theory also we have studied about. That is the transmission of nerve impulse also requires the exchange of sodium and potassium ions. So all these ions are, or these substances are required by the body for various activities. Vitamins. Vitamins are the important constituents. Their deficiency would lead to diseases, and they are of two types: fat soluble vitamins or water soluble. Fat soluble A, D, E and K. A, D, E and K are fat soluble vitamins, while B and C are water soluble. Next is water. The next and the most important constituent is water, and it forms 2/3 of the total body weight. It is required to flush out the excretory substances. It is required to provide required to for the various activities of the body. So this water is the major constituent of the body. About the carbohydrates, carbohydrates are of three types: monosaccharide, disaccharide and polysaccharide. If there is a single unit of sugar, with the formula like the single unit example is glucose C6H12O6, glucose, fructose, sucrose, galactose. These all are monosaccharides, and they contain single unit of sugar. And glucose is termed as grape sugar, fructose is fruit sugar, and galactose is the milk sugar. Next is the disaccharide. If two sugar units or two monosaccharide units are joined together, then they are termed as disaccharides. And the formula for this is C12H22O11. And for first example is sucrose, where two units, so two monosaccharide unit, one is the glucose and fructose. When glucose and fructose combine together, they form sucrose. Glucose and two glucose units combine together, therefore it forms maltose. Glucose and galactose together, it forms lactose. So this two units of monosaccharide, whether it is glucose, galactose or fructose, when they combine together, two units are together, then it is a disaccharide. Then polysaccharide, if these monosaccharide units are joined in joined together and they form large long chains, then it is a polysaccharide. Example for this is cellulose, which is present in which is the major constituent of the cell wall of plants. And the general formula for polysaccharide is C6H10O5. N means long chain. Number of chain and the units vary. Cellulose is the major component of the cell wall, while glycogen is the major constituent of the animal. The fat or the energy is stored in the liver of animals or in the muscles of the animals. So carbohydrate stored in the muscles or liver is in the form of glycogen. This is about the carbohydrate. Monosaccharide, disaccharide and polysaccharide, monosaccharide, glucose, fructose and galactose. Disaccharide is sucrose, maltose and lactose. Polysaccharide is cellulose and glycogen. After carbohydrate comes the fats. Fats, the fats are made up of fatty acids, oil, ghee, butter that we consume in our food is made up of fatty acid, and it is the most energy providing substance. It provides 9.45 kilocalorie with 1 mole of the fat. So this next is proteins. Proteins are food rich in proteins are the food which is made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen as its major constituent, and the food rich in protein are meat, fish, eggs, milk, cheese, etc. And deficiency of these substances in our food result in deficiency diseases, and in the syllabus of class 9 the major two diseases mentioned are kwashiorkar and marasmus. So the first disease is deficiency disease. Deficiency of protein causes the disease which is kwashiorkar, and this disease is because if when a mother stops feeding the baby at an early stage, since the mother's milk is rich in protein, and if she stops feeding at an early stage to the baby, then it would result in underweight, loss of appetite, protruding belly, stunted growth and enlarged liver and anemia conditions. So these are the symptoms of the disease. Causes when the mother stops feeding at an early stage. Symptoms: underweight due to loss of appetite, then stunted growth, the belly is protruding out, then last is enlarged liver and anemia condition. Next is protein deficiency disease is marasmus, and this disease affects infants below age of 1. So here the symptoms are again here the body weight is very less, appetite is low, skin becomes loosely folded. There is degenerations of skin muscles, degenerations of bone, and it would result in loosely folded skin, then thin face, thinning of limbs, retarded physical and mental growth. So this is all about the symptoms of the disease kwashiorkor and marasmus, which is the protein deficiency disease. In the next class, we will study about macro and micronutrients, their symptoms, their sources, their deficiency diseases, and the symptoms, sources, and deficiency diseases of vitamins. So for today's, it is sufficient. Thank you, students, for being in the class.